I'm not going to beat around the bush with this one. After 2.5 years back into playing, I've been through Les Paul, Telecaster, Strat. Of course, I started with Strat. I've got a few Gibson ES guitars. I love them all. I love them all. I walk into here every day and I'm not sure what I'm going to play until recently. Very recently, I bought that master-built Fender Stratocaster, the hardtail, the 50 style two-tone chocolate burst with HSS configuration, and it reinvigorated my love of Strats. So much so that at the moment I can't see myself playing anything else. But the surprise for you might be that actually it's not that Strat, that if I could only have one, would be the one. Now, I'm not going to let go of that guitar probably ever, unless someone pries it out of my cold dead hands. But it's not the one if I could only have one. Why? Because when I think of a Strat, I do want the flexibility of a trem. I do want to not to have a humbucker ultimately, even though I really enjoy using that guitar in every way, and it's such a massive sound and will be a part of my sound. It's not the one. The one would be this one, or one very much like it. This is my favorite type of guitar. I know you might be thinking it's very boring. You might be disappointed. For me, it's the least boring. That's the way it goes, isn't it? If you love it. Now, this particular one I love. It does the sound I'm looking for, but it might not be the one itself, because I might be looking for something a bit more original. This is a boutique guitar made by Case Guitars here in the UK. Beautiful nitro finish, beautiful pickups by JW Restoration, very small pickup maker. I want to make this guitar look well played and rough. I want the paint to start coming off. I want to play it for so many hours that my sweat destroys this side of the guitar, and I want to make picking marks here, and I want to sit there for so long doing this while I'm you know, thinking that there's no paint left here, and I want my belt to do some rash on the back. Do you know what I mean? I want to build this guitar into an old chap with me. So I'm going to have this guitar forever, but, you know, to give away a bit of the game early, I'm looking for something a bit more original. I'll leave it at that. This is an early 60s style Strat three-tone burst. It's my favorite type of guitar, especially with the trem. This would be the one. When it comes to an amp, well, what pairs with this so well? Well, to be honest, I'm very lucky with amps, as you know if you watch the channel. All of my amps I enjoy, from the Tone King, Sky King, through to my new Hook amp, through to my T-Rock Classic Reverb, obviously, and my Bartel Roseland, which I'm still getting used to and is just glorious. My Matchless just is so punchy, and my Rift Ainsley Lister is honestly the perfect amp for me, but funny enough, it wouldn't be the one if I could only have one. The one would be the 1967 Vibrolux that I got recently. Thinking about sitting next to that amp with this guitar, and that being the only option I have, it feels like the hugest inspiration. That's all I need. That amp can do glassy, it can do edge of breakup, it can do great tremolo, it can do reverb, beautiful washy big reverb. It's powerful enough for me. I'd never need more headroom. I doubt I'll ever play a gig bigger than 50 people down the pub when I do start playing gigs, and it inspires me when I walk in the room. That amp has the sound I've been looking for, and I've been all around the houses to find it. I love all the stuff that I play with, I enjoy, and all of it inspires me differently, but to be myself, ultimately the Vibrolux seems to be the one, and especially with a guitar like this. By the way, the Gold SG that I bought recently would be my humbucker guitar of choice right now, even over my Les Pauls. The Gold SG seems to me to have so much personality and brightness and clarity, and I really love that guitar, so don't think I don't. I'm not forgetting about it, but ultimately you've got to be true to yourself. And then my one pedal would probably just be a tuner, but let's assume you're allowing me that. It's going to be the Shanks. In my head, I'm going Tula, Austin Pride Fuzz. I wouldn't do modulation. I'm enjoying this rotary sim that I've got, but on the other hand, the tremolo on the amp could do for that sort of thing. I need the Vemuram Shanks because it gives me every variety of overdrive that I actually really need or want. So I'd have to leave everything else behind. But yeah, the Shanks is the most amp-like pedal I've got, even though it doesn't say, a lot of pedals say, you know, amp-like or whatever, but the Shanks really is. So there you go. That, the Vibrolux and the Shanks. Right, next question. Okay, next question is, I'm torn between the Nashville-made ES335 60s in cherry and the ES345 60s in cherry. I love the blocks on the 335, but not the figured top. So it's down to parallelograms or dots. Do you prefer the 345 over the 335, or did you just end up that way after getting the vintage 345? Okay, so my vintage ES is actually a 355, but a 345 looks like this one. Hang on a minute, dropping guitars. Let's try and be careful. I do want some wear and tear on this Strat though, so I don't mind. Okay, this is a 345 with the parallelogram split inlays, and this one is the Marcus King. It's got this sideways thing and the baritone, and it's, you know, lovely. Here's the thing I would say, if you're looking for a 335, you should get a 335. In terms of feeling, it's not really just a substitute 335, 45, 55. The 355 feels very grand. It's got the triple binding on it, and there's something about it that just doesn't feel really cool in a way. When I see someone like JD Simo playing his red 335, there's something about the simplicity of the design of the 335 that to me comes across as just being drop dead cool, you know? So I'm in a real transitional moment with my ES guitars. I'm not picking them up a lot, and in the end I think I only need one, and it wouldn't be any of the ones I've got. I'd be looking for one 335 cherry red, not too figured, as you say. That might be an issue for you. Maybe you need to look elsewhere at different 335s. I don't know how much those ones cost, so I can't offer on that, but my advice would be, if you go out looking for a guitar, stick to that one. If that's what your heart was telling you wanted a 335, that more simple look and feel is quite different. It depends what gets you going when you walk in the room and what inspires you, but I'd stick to the 335 if I were you. They're going to sound the same, you know, depending on the year, the pickups and all of that, but they're intended for the same thing. The 355 on the other hand has the ebony board, which the 335 and 45 don't. They have like rosewood boards, so they are similar. Yeah, it's a tough one. You've got to get out there and try them, really. That's what I took away from that Peach trip. Try the guitar before you buy it. You might find a 345 that just wails and sings the way you want it to, and then you'll fall in love with it, and you might find that the figured top on the 335 isn't a problem if you love the guitar. I've got a story about a figured top ES guitar, but I'm saving it for another video. So, but yeah, you might want to watch that as well. Get to the bottom of this. So I've just brought up the listings for what I think of these ES guitars that you've mentioned. This is the figured 335 with the block inlays. It says figured and 3199, and the dot one is quite a lot cheaper where I am. But the picture makes it look figured. It's not like it's not got any figuring, but I guess in real life it's probably less figuring. And then the 345 60s cherry here. I just think the amount of sort of, it looks like there's so much more binding on the 345. It's just, I'm not sure if it actually is. Yeah, I think it is. It looks more complicated, you know. I quite like the look of it, but if I was after a 335, I wouldn't necessarily want extra fuss, you know. It's difficult. Are they the same pickups? The dot one has got, come on, where are they? Pickups, calibrated T-type lead, calibrated T-type rhythm. Yeah, same pickups. I don't know, man. I think you'd have to see it in real life unless you just went for the dotted, saved some money and went for that earlier aesthetic. I think it looks great. Anyway. Okay, next question. I just got a Dumble clone amp. Have you ever experimented with a Dumble? I haven't experimented with a real Dumble. I haven't experimented with a proper Dumble clone, because the Two Rock amps are not Dumble clones in the same way that some companies make them. They're Dumble inspired for sure, but they're not overdrive special. They're not, you know, whatever like that. But that's as close as I've got. I'm really interested in Amplified Nation, who seem to be making really high quality Dumble clones that are more faithful than Two Rock. And that's where I would look next for my Dumble thing. If Dumble is even the sound I like, I have to scratch that itch though to find out. So I will end up with an Amplified Nation or similar. People talk about Cherryotone. I think they're really good for the price, and yeah, that's your bang for the buck brand for that sort of stuff. I'd be interested to know what Dumble amp, clone amp you bought though, Jerry. Yeah. Okay. Another question. Do you tube swap or speaker swap with your amps to see what vibe's the best? What are the combinations you found to be the best? No, I don't, and I don't. There are some things that I'm not going to play around with personally, because tube swapping, speaker swapping, worrying about my bridge, tremolo systems, fret wire, that sort of thing. I've decided not to go down there yet. I'm too stuck into playing, learning, and making my videos. So I will take someone else's advice. If they just said to me, that speaker is not as good as it could be and try this one, and it was something that was easily done, I'd probably just swap the speaker. Tubes, I'm convinced that ultimately I'm going to just be able to get what I can, because the tube market is expensive now and difficult. So I haven't swapped a lot of, I've never swapped a tube. And when it comes to that sort of thing, I'm sorry, I can't help, but it's not the rabbit hole that I'm currently down. All right. This is a really interesting question from Spencer. I almost find collecting gear more fun than actually just playing the guitar now. Is this something you struggle with at all? I have to say no, not at all. I don't. My brain seems to treat the collecting and the playing as two very different things, but it's a Venn diagram. You know, in the middle would be, for example, Strats and things like that inspire me to want to play. So buying them would just make me play twice as much for the next 2 months, 3 months, you know, whatever time it is. The playing is what I'm really here for. The collecting side of things, well, I've collected lots of other things in my past. I'm a collecting type of person, so is my dad. I enjoy that a lot. I enjoy thinking about it, but I'm not, given that I have a YouTube channel that's been heavily centered around gear, in myself and in my own time outside of the channel, I'm probably not as deeply into gear as it would come across. I think I get it all out in my videos, basically. So no, and if you're feeling like that, it's not a problem. It depends what your aims are. I'd suggest finding some way of learning something new that's going to inspire you. Get a teacher. I've just having 6 or 8 lessons with Ainsley Lister over the last 10 months or whatever it's been. Each time I have them, I come out with something new, a new angle, and it's exciting. I'm starting to give lessons. My email address will be down in the description. I'm actually giving my first lesson later today, so I might not be the right person to turn to. But if you want to just have a chat, then yeah, we could sort that out. But I don't think it's something you have to struggle with. You either really want to play or you don't, and if you're not in that mood right now, just enjoy what you're doing. Okay, next one. Do you play acoustic guitar? I have an acoustic guitar. I started by playing a Spanish classical guitar, but I don't play acoustic because generally I'm not a singer-songwriter, for example, so that side of things I don't do. But I have an acoustic that I'll take. We've got a house in France and we have a fire pit, and in the summer a lot of my family comes over as well, and I might sit there and just strum away or pick quietly. That's really the only time I'll use it. So I haven't got into the acoustic thing. I might do one day, but I haven't got a singing voice, and that I find that sad, unfortunately. So playing an acoustic leaves me feeling like I wish I could do better, you know. Okay. Zach says, which is more important to you, good amp or good guitar? If forced to choose only one, he says, great channel, thanks. That's nice of you. Okay, I have a video planned about this. It's been planned for a very long time, so I can't give it away. But at some point in the next 2 months or so, I'll make that video and answer that question. I think it's probably obvious. It'd be really interesting if you all wrote down in the comments which I think is more important, amp or guitar. And then we'll look back when I make that video. If you want to, that'd be fun. Okay. Oh, this is a big one. Who is your biggest influence on the guitar? Thanks, Chris, for the question. Oh, that's a really tough one. I don't have the chops to demonstrate that I've picked up influences, if you think about it that way. But if I name 5 or so guitarists that have influenced me to at least want to play, and that I think about frequently, I'd have to say B.B. King, Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Peter Green, and Stevie Ray Vaughan. And then I'm missing out loads that I find from time to time that I'll listen to. And in the modern sort of era, the players that have inspired me since I've started again are Josh Smith, despite the fact that I cannot play a single thing that he does. Kirk Fletcher, because he's just endlessly smiling. Joey Landreth, because he makes the guitar sound just so gloriously fantastic. J.D. Simo, because he's got the vibe and the old soul that I feel akin to in him. Ainsley Lister, because despite being a fantastic player, he's very approachable and we've become good friends. And I learn a lot from him. And then there's loads others. I mean, there are YouTube people that I just think are fantastic that I watch. The guys from That Pedal Show, you know, Mick may not be the most flexible player, but he's doing the thing that I want to play and doing it much, much better. And then Dan is just someone that I feel he loves to learn, which I do. So I really enjoy watching him and the way he's in awe of things. That's the sort of thing that I do. So I like that. And yeah, there's just so many around. But who's my biggest influence? Jimi Hendrix. No doubt. Yeah, in the end. Although probably I've listened to so much Led Zeppelin in my time. It's weird that I don't play at all like that much. Okay, moving on from that one. I like questions like that. Okay, let's do a big one here. If you could have any famous player's rig and a different player's chops, who would those two players be? Oh, that is a great question. Let me get this straight. I can have the rig from a famous player, but I can't play like him, and I can have the chops of a different player. Okay, I'm going to come back to this at the end of the video because that's a big question and I'm going to have to think about it. We're going to end the video with that question. Yeah, that's a great question. I love that. Okay, I think I'm going to get through all the questions in this because then we'll do another Q&A in a few months with different questions. Okay. What low wattage amps would you recommend for a wet dry setup for home use? I mean, I love a Princeton. I think Princetons give the feeling of a much bigger amp than they are, despite the 10-inch speaker. So probably one half of it for low wattage would always be that. But having said that, I really, really want to try a 5 to 20 watt proper pure tweed amp. I've got the Bartel Roseland, which is a tweed amp essentially that can then do other things, but it's a huge one and it's like that. I want to get a Lazy J. Now, a Lazy J 5 or 10 instead of the Princeton could be great. And then you know, I'm already sort of knew this, but I'm learning as I go along as well. You need something that's voiced differently. I don't know that a tweed and a blackface are different enough in the whole gamut of things do you want something more Marshally? Well, I don't know anything about small Marshall type amps, so that's a difficult one. I would say the Princeton, and then something like a Champ, a 5-watt amp that's going to be quite pushed but not too loud. Keep your Princeton louder, but before the edge of breakup, so it's sparkling and big, clean. Have the, and lots of people have recommended this to me, have the sort of more broken up amp, broken up but not as loud, and then that'll give you the crunch behind the clean. I think that's a good way to go. As to specific amps, you could do that with the Princeton, and then a Milkman, a 5 or 10 watt Milkman would give you a similar effect. Okay, what are the best UK guitar shops and why? And also new versus used. Okay, 2 different questions. Best guitar shops. I have good and bad with every guitar shop. For pedals, Andertons. For me, the most vibey, interesting, high-end guitars, Peach. Coda always has loads of choice, but their master-built guitars they tend to have are a bit more classic-looking or traditional-looking, and Peaches tend to be a bit more on the relic-y or sort of vibey end. But Coda always has loads of master-builts in there and custom shop guitars that are worth going to play. For amps, not Andertons, Peach is good. Their selection over the last year has dwindled a lot as it's difficult to get hold of them, whereas Coda continuously have amps coming in. They'll say coming in May, coming in June, coming in July, and they're ordering loads of great amps. They've got Bartels, 2 Rocks, and then they've got Carr and a few of those other boutique amp manufacturers. And then there's the vintage sort of side of things. You've got ATB, you've got Guitar Village, which has a little bit of a selection of new and also vintage, and you've got Guitar. Don't just think of them as being a high street shop or whatever. Guitar often have really cool guitars in that are worth looking at. So yeah, in order for your pedals, and I mean obviously for lots of guitars, Andertons. For really cool vibey stuff, John at Peach, you know, really curates the selection. He told me he's got like 200 of one master builder's guitars on order that cover the next 10 years. You know, he puts, and he's spec'd each one personally. That's a lot of effort. So Peach, Coda just has lots of interesting stuff, lots of high quality stuff. I've heard some interesting things about Coda and people feeling a bit unwelcome in the shop, but I think it's probably a small shop. And, you know, it's hard for a guitar store to know who to trust and who not to trust. They've been friendly to me when I've used them. I bought my Bartel from them. Guitar Village. We won't talk about vintage guitar shops, actually, because there's good and bad out there. ATB are a good one. Right. New versus used. I like new things with new guitars. I don't want to buy a 2015 Les Paul and save 20% on a new one, personally. Give me a new one. I'll know what the current state of affairs is with a guitar manufacturer. Gibson have gone uphill, for example. But when it comes to vintage, obviously it's going to be used. And I want something that's been used a bit, but not used too much. If it's been used a bit and you can see some marks, someone's enjoyed it. Happy days. If it's a really early guitar, then I don't mind if it's been bashed about a little bit, but I want paint wear, not wood chips, right? I don't want people to have dented and bashed and broken it. But yeah, for guitars, that's one thing. For amps, I don't suppose I'm as bothered because I feel like the parts of an amp that could go wrong, you can get that fixed reasonably cheaply. It's surprising that servicing amps is not more expensive, but you know, it's not too bad. You want to check that the speaker hasn't just been over played loudly and it's not too crazy or wallowy. But ultimately, as long as you see the amp, turn it on and it plays, I'm okay with used and have been, and I sell my amps as well, so I think used is okay. Doesn't make much difference to me if it's new or used with an amp, personally. Yeah. What have you had to sacrifice to pursue your YouTube adventure? That's a good question. I mean, obviously I've sacrificed a lot of time, but I was going to use that time to learn the guitar anyway, and making the channel has made me play the guitar more. That was my ultimate aim. And I feel like I've gained a lot more than I've sacrificed. You know, I'm not making a lot of money out of YouTube. I'm in a very fortunate position business-wise that it doesn't take a lot of my time, and frankly, I've gained a community because, I've struggled with mental health issues my whole life, and actually before picking up the guitar again, I was probably at my lowest ever ebb, and I happened to pick up therapy and guitar playing at the same time, and it's been the best 2.5 years of my life probably, and my wife would probably say that as well. I'm just nicer to be around, calmer and happier. So I've gained a lot more than I've sacrificed. I'm hoping to go a lot further. I'd love to be a channel that has 30 to 50,000 subs, and at the same time I don't want to lose the small channel feeling. Safe to say, I'll always try and respond to people who are being friendly and asking interesting questions or making interesting points. Okay, so don't be mad at me, but I didn't get to my favourite question in this one, so I'm splitting this into 2 parts. I've got more questions I didn't answer, and to be honest, I don't think you can sit through such a long video just about me. I feel a bit self-conscious about that anyway, but I hope you found this interesting, and in the next one I will be answering if I could have a player's rig but play like a different player, who would each of those players be? I love that question. I'm going to think about it until I can record that in a couple of days' time. And so I hope you find that interesting and come back for that video. In the meantime, please subscribe if you haven't. It really means a lot to me. And yeah, give this video a thumbs up. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.